George Kilpatrick, Inspiration for the Nation, celebrating people we feel good about. Darrell Buckingham is a program officer with the Central New York Community Foundation. And one of his projects is the Black Equity and Excellence Fund. Believe it or not, it's been 2 years since the Central New York Community Foundation committed, at that point, $1 million to supporting the Black community in particular, right? The Black community in particular. Now, that doesn't mean that the Central New York Community Foundation isn't supporting all communities all over the place, but they made a specific pledge to support the Black community. Why? Well, I should ask. I was gonna say why, but let me just let Darrell do his job.
Oh, go ahead, man. You had me hyped up.
Right. But one of the reasons why they did that, obviously, is that in our community, we have some of the highest concentration of poverty in our community. And this initiative, among other reasons, is a way for us to combat and deal with the high concentration of poverty, particularly in Black and Brown communities in Central New York. It's on the record. It's a fact. The other reason is, obviously, there's been a great awakening in this country and in this community in light of the murder of George Floyd, and many organizations have begun to reassess, their commitments, their values, and how are we serving communities such as the African American community in particular, who have been on the margins of access. So, from what I understand, since Darrell has given me the floor, he'll correct me when I'm wrong. Well, from what I understand, the Community Foundation has an opportunity to contribute its resources in ways that can help to accelerate and support, in particular, Black-owned businesses in our community. So for the last 2 years, they've been doing exactly that, including the reason why I'm here, right? One of the reasons why I can do what I'm doing is because I have been one of the proud recipients of the first round. Actually, I was in the inaugural class, and
yes,
there's no question about that. Full disclosure, y'all know that. I've talked about it. So, Darrell, I guess you should say something now, bro.
Yeah, man. I mean, I love that you warmed it up, right? And so the cool thing is that you have all this great knowledge and certainly personal experience with Black equity and excellence, which is great. And so, you hit it on the head, George. So essentially what we are hoping to do is to help kind of reverse the pattern of historical underinvestment in our Black community, right? You talked about our issues with poverty. 47% of the children, Black children in particular, here in Onondaga County live in poverty. 47%, which is almost 50%, which is every other child that you look at essentially be living in poverty. Right. The Black household median household wage is about 48% of white households.
Wow.
Right. And so this kind of data drives the work that we do. We are data driven to some extent here.
Yes.
But outside of data, we do also listen to the community. And that essentially is how we also started with this BE&E fund. Right, we did this vast listening party to the community, speaking with leaders of the community, speaking with residents of the community, and as you mentioned, outside of data and conversations with our community, the time was right 2 years ago with the untimely death of George Floyd. Right, with this new awakening, many organizations you talked about, we're trying to find ways to contribute to be better. And so thankfully, the Central New York Community Foundation had already been doing some of that internal work. We're about 3 or 4 years in on our journey to do better. We recognize that we had done great work throughout the many years, almost 100 years we've been around. And so we've done great work externally. But in order to make greater impact, we understood that we were going to need to do some internal work in order to be better about what we do.
It's interesting because I think it was important for you to say that this was a conversation you were already having, so it wasn't so you could launch this because it was already, you were already creating the ground, laying the groundwork for something like this. And so, what would you say has been the impact, Darrell, of by the way, and thank you again, the Central New York Community Foundation, for supporting Inspiration for the Nation. What do you think the impact has been of the BE&E fund, as you call it?
Well, I think the first level of impact is that, the fact that this fund is very intentional, right, about serving Black-led and Black-serving organizations. First time ever, right? It's not been done before. And so we are proud to kind of not just lead the way locally, but there's been national foundation and other organizations that have been paying attention to the work that we're doing. And that, part of that impact is influencing other communities, right, to do the same kind of work in their own way. Here in Syracuse, I think the impact is, the fact that folks can see that there is something specific to who I am and what I do. Oftentimes we have small nonprofit organizations who don't always have the capacity or the bandwidth to do the great things that they are doing. And so to have the ability to help fund those projects and those organizations, I think that's the biggest impact. When application processes are oftentimes very difficult for other funding sources, with Black equity and excellence, that is not the case. And so it's fun to come to work, man. I'll be perfectly honest. This is not the only thing that I do, but this is that time of year, right? As our BE&E grant round is open. So,
all right. So let's talk about that. So and then we're going to talk some more about some of the other ways that some of the places that you've helped. So what's the deadline for applying for this round?
Yeah, it is coming up quick. July 8th, which is next Friday, folks. So if you have not yet applied, you've got a limited amount of time to do so. Please do so. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself or Kiana Williams. Now, after the deadline, what happens is we will kind of take a look at all the applications that we receive. We have an advisory council, an all Black advisory council, that will review those applications and essentially make the decisions on funding. And so, it really is a great opportunity to be a part of a process where it essentially is all Black, right? It's led by all Black staff. It's reviewed by all Black advisory council. It specifically serves Black-led, Black-serving organizations. And so, yeah, I mean, this is BE&E, baby.
Darrell Buckingham, Program Officer for the Central New York Community Foundation. So people can apply by the deadline, July 8th. They go to the CNYCF.org, and is there a tab that they just apply? Now, there's a lot of different ways. I should tell people, right? There's a lot of different ways to apply the application. Like you said, I think I counted 7 different ways to apply.
So I'm going to go ahead and simplify that, because that's what BE&E is all about, right? Making it accessible, flexible, and so essentially what you can do when you log on to our website, which is cnycf.org/equity. You can go there to submit application and donation. Don't forget about that.
There you go.
We are always open to donation to help us continue to do this great work.
Sure.
Right. And so in terms of the application, as I mentioned, it is a more streamlined process, right? So when you log on to the website and you go to the online application, you can either complete the application right there online, or you can submit a PowerPoint, you can submit audio, you can submit a video presentation about the great impact that you hope to make. You can even submit a written narrative, 1-page written narrative, all about your project and what you hope to accomplish with the funding. And so we are a creative people, and it was only right that we have a creative application process.
Yeah, I love that. And even I think if you if you there's like it's very accessible. That's the point I wanted to make. That's why I said 7 different ways, because you visual, you can spit a little bit. Well then,
Right, right.
and for those of you who don't know what I mean, let me back up for a
Break
minute.
it down, George.
If you have verbal dexterity, if you're good with your words, my brother.
I love it.
or if you a lot of people, we all have cameras. If your way of communicating is to turn the camera on and do that, or if you're more technical and you want the, however you communicate, this is a lot of fun. And I think this is new, because when you first started, it was all going outwards. You now have the opportunity. Well, you've always could contribute to the Central New York Community Foundation, so that's not new. But what you can do now is specifically contribute to this fund so that there's more monies available to disperse to the community. And I think you mentioned that briefly, that there was that they can also, on that same cnycf.org/equity, they can also make donations as well.
Absolutely, and we certainly encourage that. We see this being a long-term fund. This is not something that is ripe for the moment, right? This is something that is necessary. And we hope to, it's only been 2 years, so we're still in an infancy stage, I believe. But there's room for growth. There's room to tweak some of what we're doing. We're still learning and figuring some things out. But the impact has been noticeable, I think, in the community.
What would you say are some of the success stories of the Black Equity and Excellence Fund, BE&E Fund? What are some of the success stories that resulted from the grants? What's been the impact?
Yeah, so this is always a tough question for me to answer, George, because the fact that there is a Black Equity and Excellence Fund is the success story,
in and of itself, right?
In and of itself, right? And so there are so many, not just applicants, but folks that have actually received funding. And so it's always hard to pick one or two from the pile, but I will.
I was going to say, you got one or two in the pile.
For the sake of this interview, I will throw you some. I think one was the Black Media Mogul Maker. This was like kind of this diverse program and very inclusive program. I think it was like a 10-week digital media entrepreneurship program that included some training and mentorship and resources for about 25 Black creatives. The objective was essentially to provide a roadmap, skills to the community that fosters a Black media ownership within Syracuse. Basically, bridging the digital divide. Now, I know I'm speaking your language. This is right up your alley, George. We're talking about Black Media Mogul.
Yes.
So this was a great program. I'm glad that this is a space. It's a very specific space, right? You don't hear a lot about Black media and creatives in this particular area. And so I thought that was a great, one of our great success stories. I think they all are essentially success stories. Ecodessa is another great story that I oftentimes refer to. She has a clothing store right here in downtown Syracuse, and she was essentially doing kind of this retail incubator. And it was a program that she put together to kind of like manage pop-up shops of other Black-owned small startups with the hopes of getting more Black-owned businesses in the downtown area. And so, I'm proud of the work that she's been doing in that area. I don't yet have the numbers on what that has, on what that looks like, but just really proud of that project as well. I'm proud of all of these projects.
Yeah, for the Black Media Mogul, that was Bishop Ronald Dewberry and Sarisa Richardson for the Ecodessa. So you ain't even know I knew, but
no, I know that you. Yeah,
I was very familiar. So Darrell, just in terms of your hopes for this fund and what you would like to see, you grew up in this community, so you firsthand what the impact could be. What are your hopes? not only as a program officer, but as a lifelong resident?
No, that's a great question, George. As I'm sure you've heard a lot. I don't know if my want is specific to BE&E, right? As you mentioned, I'm born and raised here in Syracuse, in the south side of Syracuse. I'm from this community. I'm still here. And, as a Black boy growing up here and having an opportunity to do this kind of work, I hope that this process will in some way encourage some other Black boy or Black girl to also stay home with their lived experience and their education and try to help create additional impact in the community in which they live. And so I think that would be my hope indirectly for BE&E.
And beyond. Darrell Buckingham is a program officer for the Central New York Community Foundation. What does just for those that aren't listening all the time or don't know, what does the Central New York Community Foundation do in the community?
We are a public foundation, right? What that essentially means is we receive donations. We then take those donor funds, we grow them over time, and then we redistribute those funds throughout the community to create greater impact. Right.
And the bottom line.
That's the short and simple explanation.
Right. And by the way, you've got a great cover if you haven't seen it, El-Amin Muhammad. It's called
Absolutely.
Voice. And in there, you point out some of the recent grants that you made for diverse groups and organizations in the community. And when I mean diverse by region, by every measure of what diverse means, rural, city, suburban, all over the place. But bottom line is you're able to do that because people see that you're a good steward of the funds and redistributing those funds to make the community more equitable and safe for all. And that sort of mission is more important than ever right now at this time in our country when rights are being taken away. And so we do appreciate that work. But also, I think there's I was taken when you said as a Black boy growing up in this community and your hopes for the community, because you can see the evidence of the impact of a BE&E on communities. People are actually doing the stuff that they said they were going to do, and the community is better for it. And it means that some little Black boy or some little Black girl is going to have a better life or a better opportunity because of this work. And I know that sounds like, I know it sounds corny, right? But
it does.
It really does.
It is what it is.
It is what it is, right? and I'm not lost on the fact that you got two brothers right here, right? I didn't grow up in this community, but I've certainly made this my home and see it as my obligation to lift every voice and to make sure that our young people are inspired as I head into the twilight of of my life. Right, I'm in the fourth quarter, brother.
Yeah, taking overtime, George.
But listen. I'm looking for triple overtime, bro. But listen, Black Equity Excellence Fund is a part of the Central New York Community Foundation, cnycf.org/equity. You can donate. A lot of the work that they're doing, especially in our community, we talking to Black folks. That's what this program is about. And so, for the historically Black Greek letter organization, some of the funds are being held at the some of you Greek letter organizations have funds being held there. So there's all of that going on. Donor advised funds. There's all kinds of ways.
Absolutely. And to that point, George, I also want to make sure that I explain that although we have the Black Equity and Excellence Fund here, it does not mean that is the only avenue for Black people in our community.
Right.
Right. This is just a very specific, very
Specific.
intentional, and very unapologetic approach to investing back in our community. And so we do that in other ways as well with our community grant round. And then you've already mentioned a few of the other ones, but this is not the only option. This is just very specific.
All right. Central New York Community Foundation Program Officer, Darrell Buckingham. Black Equity and Excellence Fund, second round. The deadline is Friday, July 8th.
Apply
So
now.
Listen. After that barbecue, you go ahead on, or I'll say the
do it
different
before
way.
the barbecue.
Reward. Yeah, I was gonna say reward yourself so you can have that barbecue.
Yes,
and Darrell, thanks for joining us. Inspiration for the Nation.
Thanks for having me, George.